Now we're going to talk about scales. Scales. And scales can be many different things. Scales are very similar to sequences. However, you're still calculating numbers. You're still measuring these numbers. But in this case, we're going to be talking about temperature. And you have two different types of scales. You have degrees Fahrenheit and you have degrees Celsius. Notice on page 44, about midway through the page, it says scales in bold on the left-hand side. Numerical information is often presented to us in the form of a scale. A scale is a display of numbers with an indicator to show the value of a certain measure. Okay, so an indicator shows the certain value of measure. In this case, they're going to talk about two of the most commonly used scales. We have the degrees Celsius scale, the Fahrenheit scale, and we also have the Celsius scale. And Fahrenheit scale and Celsius scale are used to measure temperature. Now, there are two different scales. One of the things that if you notice at the bottom of this page, they use a thermometer. They show a thermometer here, and it kind of looks something like this. I'm going to do my best to draw this thermometer. And that is not a good idea. That one looks terrible. So let's start at the bottom. We have that. And then it has something in the middle that looks like this. And there's mercury in this thing. And the mercury moves up. So you have numbers on there. For example, you have 0 degrees Celsius. Here you have on their example, they have 37 degrees Celsius. And then they have all the way up here to 100 degrees Celsius. Now this is not drawn to scale. And there's a lot of other numbers inside here. Little tick marks like that. All right. And then you have the same thing on the left. So you have the 32 degrees Fahrenheit. You have 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit there. And then you have 212 degrees Fahrenheit. If you notice, the numbers on the Fahrenheit scale don't match up with the numbers from the Celsius scale. Okay, so Fahrenheit is here on the left-hand side. Celsius is on the right-hand side. Now, every measure of Fahrenheit has an equivalent measure of Celsius. It's kind of like in the lesson 8 or 9, we were talking about centimeters and meters, or inches and centimeters. They're different measures that can be equivalent, okay? But they're on different scales. So let's look at example 3. Example 3 says, let's put a line here. Example 3 says, what temperature is shown on this thermometer? And if you notice, the only measure that's showing on example 3 is the degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, the only thing that's showing are the degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so notice that you have 0 degrees Fahrenheit somewhere up here. Kind of correct that. That's degrees Fahrenheit. All right. Now, We also have 10 degrees Fahrenheit. We also have 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? Now, what we want to... Okay, so you have these, and the measure is somewhere... Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to act like that's even. And the mercury comes up somewhere. Let's put some mercury in there. Little red mercury. Woohoo! And the mercury goes up to the level of somewhere about 2 notches above the 0. So let's say it right here. 2 notches above the 0. Now, one thing you must notice is that over here in the example, mine is not a very exact replica of what's in the textbook. So let's try to redo this. Let's say we are going to put, there are all right, so it goes about 2 notches above. So if you notice, they don't list it on there, but if you go from 0 to 10 and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 notches in between, then really what's happening is this is 2 degrees, that's 4, that's 6, and that's 8. And you have to kind of use your judgment from your eyes to do it the right way, because it can be tedious at times. It shouldn't be that difficult, but it's just like counting the notches on a ruler. So if you notice here, this mercury is about even with 4 degrees. So this would be 4 degrees, and that would be Fahrenheit. So that's scales.